9 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. Welcome our board members and our guests. First item is the approval of the minutes from the June 29th, 2017 call meeting. You received a copy of those. Did anybody note any errors or omissions? Is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Move and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. The approval of financial statements. You received a copy of those. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Airport Director's report.
Okay, I'm going to do something a little different. Today I want to talk about economics. So probably everybody by now has heard of the Cobb County deal that they gave to Tyler Perry on his airplane that he's going to be keeping at McCullum. And people want to know, I guess, why would Cobb County give away so much just to keep an airplane there? So I have an article here from July 27th, 2017, and they explain the economics behind that deal. And I'll just cut to the bottom line. Over a 10-year period, Cobb County is going to see a $400,000 increase in revenue in county tax base, and the schools are going to get $733,000 additional dollars as a net result of that deal. So they didn't give away everything. They gave away what they thought they had to give away in order to secure that opportunity. And I'll point out that even with all of the trials and tribulations that they've had over the Atlanta Braves Stadium, Cobb County taxes remain at a millage rate of 28.75 this year, and unfortunately Paulding County had to increase our millage rate to 30.55. So we're almost 2 millage points higher than Cobb County. And while the airport alone can't close that gap, the airport could go a long ways toward assisting in that if we could ever get to the point where we could start attracting businesses and aircraft to the airport. I have had 3 or 4 different conversations with big airplane owners over the past several months. I lost 2 to Louisiana and 1 to Texas. And the discussion ultimately always comes down to when are you going to get all those lawsuits settled. But then there's a secondary piece of that. Y'all know that I've been pushing really hard for this terminal area expansion project, what I call the pipeline project. And that project has nothing at all to do with the Part 139 fight, except that those that are opposed to growth at the airport have filed suit against that project to halt it, and have at this point succeeded in a temporary halt on us beginning work on that program. And I just want to make sure that the public and you are all fully aware of what that means to us. Without that pipeline in place, we have no place to put the dirt for the Airport Parkway expansion project that the county wants to do. And without the Airport Parkway expansion project, we have no way to get to the 112 acres that belongs to the IBA where they want to develop the new business park for the western part of Paulding County. So these things are all interrelated. And this is a project that was planned in 2009. The engineering was done in 2010. So it predates any discussion whatsoever with Part 139 by a minimum of 2 to 3 years. And we are proposing to build exactly what we proposed to build in 2009 and 2010. And when we get down to one of our later action items here, you'll see that Georgia DOT is trying to give us more money to put towards that project, and we want to accept their assistance in building this project and building the road and opening the technology park, because only when we start to bring business into this county will we see our taxes begin to go down. We've put as much on the backs of the citizens as we possibly can. But this is all about economics, and it's all about economic development and growth and businesses and the way taxes are collected, and the fact that the typical household does not pay enough in taxes to offset all of the services that they require. So if you had a community that's 100% house-based, in other words, a bedroom community, then your taxes are going to be higher than a mixed-use community like Cobb County, which has a very healthy mix of business and residential. So I continue to be just absolutely convinced that this is the future of our airport, and this is a very important program for reducing the tax burden that's on the citizens. And I would urge the community and our politicians and everyone who has any influence at all on this project to get behind it with us, join forces with us, and let's try to get this job done, because it's extremely important for the future of this airport and this county. That's all.
Anybody have any questions, Terry?
If I might insert, I don't know if you got further reports, Mr. Tibbetts, but on Monday, we were invited, we being several county leaders, Robert Kraus was there, Robert Reynolds, Stacy was there, Scott Green was there. It was really initiated by Representative Graves, who coordinated the meetings with the fairly new commissioner, Pat Wilson. And he had his entire staff there, from film to international to tourism. But Representative Graves introduced, he opened the meeting up to bring the state group with the county group together verbally, and just said very positive things, that the county had a new mindset to work together and to move ahead and not think about what's behind, but to move forward in everything that we undertake. And I think it just segues into what you said, is we brand ourselves as a county, and I think it's absolutely great that we have differences of opinions on things, but until we put unity ahead of anything else, then we're going to continue to lag behind with these companies that come in. So what's the new slogan there, Robert, that you said? I haven't memorized all your sayings yet. But
for the IBA?
The aim.
Aiming for tomorrow.
Aiming for tomorrow. So let's just let our passion for the county and the good things that can happen overtake any of my errors in the past or any other mistakes that have been made.
Amen.
All right. The next one is approval of the tentative FY18 state and federal funding assistance in the amount of $858,334. Here.
Okay, in your package, you should have a letter from State DOT. Looks like this. And the two projects that the state wants to put emphasis on, and they put their money where their mouth is. Nothing new. This is what we were trying to accomplish last year. The first project is a wildlife perimeter fence, and they have earmarked the $150,000. This is our entitlement money that we get from the FAA every year, but they get to decide how that money is going to be spent. We are a block grant state, which means all of the FAA grant money is administered by Georgia DOT. That's why our communication is typically directly with them, even when we're talking about federal money. So they have earmarked our $150,000 entitlement money to be applied to the phase 1 of the wildlife perimeter fence project, and they are giving us an additional $334,000 in state money to go with that, and that's 75/20 money, which would require local funds on our part of $108,333, which we would have from the leftover reimbursement money that we just received in our FY17 money, for a grand total of $566,667. That would put a major portion of this fence project up. We don't have estimates yet because the design's not finished, the quotes aren't in. So we don't know exactly how far that gets us, but that's going to buy an awful lot of fence for our property out there. And then the second project is the terminal area expansion project, grading and drainage, what we colloquially call the pipeline project. And they are putting $400,000 of state money toward that. We would have to match that with $133,333 for a grand total of $533,333 towards that project, which we would also have in the budget as of today. So the Paulding County Board of Commissioners have already met on this and already approved this at their last meeting, or meeting before last. We just haven't met since then, so I would ask our board to also accept this grant so that we can start moving forward with Georgia DOT to get these funds in place.
All right, you've heard the explanation. Is there a motion to approve?
Well, can I ask a question? How come there's no federal funds for the apron expansion that there is
It's a
with the
state
wild?
project.
Okay,
That's
the
FAA money. This is state
Okay.
DOT money, just like on the terminal was state DOT money. There's no federal money put in that.
Okay. And the FAA is ready for us to proceed with the fencing and everything?
The FAA is, the lawyers are not, so we still have to win all of our legal battles, but the FAA and Georgia DOT are pressing us hard to move forward with these two projects.
Okay. Thank you,
All right,
Terry.
is there a motion?
Motion.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next is the reimbursement to Paulding County in the amount of $10,994.66, which includes county payment on our behalf of the AT&T phone lines for $42.1143, and the environmental assessment of $6,783.23.
Okay, so let me explain these two. This is actually just some cleanup from our closeout of our FY17. We have half a dozen analog phone lines for such things as monitoring our weather station, our glide slope, our instrument landing system, the fire pump in the big hangar, and so forth. Those lines have to be AT&T 911 certified lines. That's a requirement from the FAA. And so we have to use the analog, the old-fashioned analog lines for that, not voice over IP lines. And the county has a much better contract with AT&T than we could ever get. So they have always maintained these lines for us. But these are, this is an airport bill to pay. We didn't pay it last year. We didn't have the funds to pay it. We do now. We owe the money, and I would propose that we reimburse the county for the money that they have spent on our behalf for the phones. The environmental assessment, this was a portion of an invoice that was paid by the county towards the 2013 grant, FY13 environmental assessment grant. And this is money that we owe, not the county, but Tabitha had paid the bill because it needed to be paid at that time, and we need to reimburse her for that. So this is a grand total of $10,994.66 that I'd like you to approve so that we can get back even with the county.
All right, you've heard the explanation. Is there a motion to approve the payment of those bills?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is the 6,783 a 5% match or share?
No, this was one of the invoices that Tabitha paid on our behalf when we didn't have the money to pay it. So we need to reimburse her for this. We basically were fronted that money at a time when we needed to get past a difficult time. And it's just money that we need to reimburse.
But the EA was mandated.
Mandated by the court. We didn't have any option on that. This is an FAA required project that the FAA is paying for, and that was what the supplement to that we had so much discussion about in the previous FY that just ended. That's what that's all about. So this is all related to that court settlement that occurred back in 2013.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consideration of the airport director to proceed with the design for the wildlife exclusion fence to include development of work authorization for Holt Consulting to finalize the design and prepare for the bidding process.
Okay, so we had spent some money last year on the fence design at the time when we thought we were going to get the $400K in state money last year for that to proceed. And we got up to a certain point when it became obvious that we weren't going to be successful in getting the contract let in time to meet the state's deadlines. So we completed that work, but we now need to open a new work authorization with Holt to finalize the design in accordance with all the feedback that we've received from the FAA and Georgia DOT. And I don't have a price on that yet. I'll get that price for you at the next meeting. But I basically want your concurrence that we as a group believe that this is a direction that we want to move forward in so that I can start the planning for this project. There's nothing more, just so you know, there's nothing more to do on the terminal area expansion project until we get the lawsuit that's been filed against EPA Director Richard Dunn resolved. So there's no sense spending any money on that right now. The the wildlife fence, however, we can proceed on, and therefore I'd like to move forward and try to get as far as we can on that this year.
Jerry, do we have any idea that, and maybe we should put in this motion that it is not to exceed?
Well, this is not to exceed anything at the
Okay.
moment. I'm not asking for any money.
Okay.
I'm asking for your concurrence that this is a project that we want to proceed on. Then at the next meeting, hopefully I will have my work authorization ready from Holt, and I would ask you at that time to approve actually spending money with them.
Okay, so we're not voting to go ahead.
We are not voting to spend money today. We're voting for me to start the planning process to get us to the point where I can tell you how much money we need to approve.
Okay, thank you.
How
Is
much,
there a motion?
how much designing is it required for a wildlife fence?
More than you would possibly imagine, because the fence has to, is Jacob here? Jacob, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, it's got to clear all the surfaces coming into the airport. So they're looking at elevations and stuff like that. So I think they're on their 4th round,
Yeah.
a review of that fencing project at the FAA.
So it's not a typical detail, I mean, it's just as the elevations change, could the fence design change as well?
Alignment, basically we're changing the alignment every time that they feel like that's too close to the surface.
And when he says surface, he's talking about.
You're dealing with the federal government.
And the surfaces we're talking about here, LS, when an airplane comes in, you have to protect a horizontal surface, an imaginary plane, if you will. So if the airplane is off the center line, they're not going to hit the fence. And that surface is very large. And so we've continued to move the fence further and further back, trying to satisfy all of the design requirements that we have from the FAA. And that's what took a lot of time last year, plus of course getting the environmental permission to proceed, which we still don't have, but we've got to have a finalized design before we can move forward with that.
Would there be any liability if a smaller type airplane hit an animal and we've been so late?
Would I ever say that somebody can't sue the airport? So yes, of course, there would be liability, yeah. Plus, we have an obligation. We have an obligation to protect the center line of the runway from wildlife incursions, which is why we employ a hunter on the property now, which is something we would prefer not to have to do. But until we get the fence in place and approved, then we have no choice but to use lethal means to keep the airport secure.
All right, is there a motion for the approval of the work authorization to begin?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Special event permit
That was
application.
withdrawn. The people wanting that permit withdrew it, so we can skip that.
All right. What about the election precinct?
Oh,
It's not, I don't see it on here.
I'm sorry, that's what this one was for. I had two things confused. So yes,
Okay.
we need to talk about the election precinct. And you have those dates in your package.
And Peggy is here as chair of the Board of Elections and Voter Registration. They are reducing the number of precincts in the county down to 12 this year.
12.
And they have asked for use of the airport, and you have the dates listed when they would be out there and be using the terminal facility.
And for 18, we're talking only about early voting, correct? So
Correct.
the dates in bold are the dates that we're talking about.
All right? Is
So we
there,
would be an early voting precinct.
is there a motion on the request?
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We do have a need to go into closed session for real estate and litigation purposes. Is there a motion?
Excuse me, I'm scheduled to speak.
Later.
Can I do that before you go into the session?
It's after, it's on the agenda after that.
Make a motion to go in closed session, discuss real estate litigation.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, I will note that we have adjourned executive session with no business to report. Is there a motion to return to regular session?
Make a motion to return to regular session.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I will note that Mr. Tidmore did join us at the beginning of the executive session and is present for the rest of the meeting. Next item on business is citizens wishing to speak, and we have one that has asked to be on the agenda. Kathy.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for letting me speak. I come to you this morning in light of all the legal fees wasted on this airport controversy and ask you to again, please withdraw the 139 application. It no longer matters who supports or opposes commercialization. The reality is, it has torn this community apart and cost the taxpayers more than we should have to burden. All we see are rising taxes and no jobs coming here. I've stood here before asking you to do the same for the last 3 years. I even recently sent an email asking you to withdraw the Part 139. Every single lawsuit in Paulding County regarding the airport is a result of the actions by this board. Every penny of taxpayer money spent defending these lawsuits is a result of your decisions. You have single-handedly brought this community to its knees. And quite frankly, we're all tired of it. We need economic development. We need private investors to invest in our community. That's not going to happen for, probably the next 30 or so years, because the city of Atlanta is not going to let this rest. Don't try to sell us that if we don't do this, Atlanta will. If Atlanta wanted an airport in Paulding County, it would already be done. They've had the option to do that since the 70s. Atlanta, unlike some of you, listened to the citizens when we said we didn't want an airport here. They heard us loud and clear. Do you hear us? Look around the table. Who's sitting here that made the decision to bring passenger airliners to our community? Not very many of you are left. Because they've left for one reason or another, but it all comes back to this Part 139 debacle. The only people that win when it comes to legal fees, sorry Tom, are the lawyers. I'm tired of paying them, and I believe most of Paulding County is too. You can't make your bond payments, and you can't even pay your bills. You hold the responsibility for all of this. You, and only this board, has the power to stop it. It falls in your laps. I, for one, would much rather spend taxpayer dollars asking Propeller to leave than to spend the next 30 years battling the city of Atlanta that drives 3/4 of the economy in the state of Georgia. There has never been a public vote by the Board of Commissioners in support of changing our airport to include commercial passenger service. Only this board has ever voted on that. I will continue to do everything in my power to let our community know your decisions and your decisions alone have caused this and are continuing to let it go on. We've spent enough money. Let's stop wasting it and do something more constructive for our community. Thank you.
No public out. No, we're not, we don't do displays. All right, anything else from the board? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, is there a second? Second, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned.